The music industry was rocked once again, not by a chart-topping release or a viral collaboration, but by a deepening legal storm surrounding one of its most influential figures, Sean Diddy. Combs, the rap mogul known for shaping the sound of hip-hop over the last 3 decades, now finds himself at the center of a sex-trafficking scandal that's casting a long, dark shadow across the entertainment world. As the trial looms, more celebrities are being asked to comment, and while many remain tight-lipped, the silence has finally broken from one of the industry's most recognizable stars, Justin Bieber. Bieber, who has maintained a relatively private stance on many controversies throughout his career, chose this moment to speak out. The implications of his words have rippled across social media, mainstream outlets, and private circles in Hollywood. Bieber and Diddy go way back, their interactions dating back to the early days of Bieber's explosive rise to fame when the teen heartthrob was navigating a world filled with promise and pitfalls. At that time, Diddy was one of many veteran figures eager to mentor him, at least on the surface. For years, the two were seen attending events together, posing for photos, and exchanging public messages of mutual respect. But in light of recent allegations, those moments are being re-examined under a completely different lens. What Justin Bieber said wasn't a simple statement, it wasn't crafted by a PR team, it wasn't just another vague post meant to dodge controversy. Instead, it was personal, pointed, and filled with emotion. Sources close to Bieber describe a shift in his tone when he spoke privately about Diddy in the past few months, a mix of disillusionment and betrayal. In his recent interview, Bieber revealed he had long felt unsettled by some of the encounters from his early career. Without directly accusing Diddy of any wrongdoing against him, Bieber confessed that the environment he was brought into as a young artist often felt exploitative and confusing. It was, as he described, like being thrown into a room where everyone was wearing masks. The trial itself is already one of the most talked about events of the year. Allegations of sex trafficking, coercion, and abuse are being brought forward not only by survivors, but by investigators who claim to have found damning digital evidence. The prosecution has promised a case built on testimony, wire transfers, flight logs, and private recordings. Diddy's legal team is preparing a vigorous defense, denying all allegations and labeling them as a smear campaign. But as the trial date nears, more celebrities who were once in Diddy's orbit are being pulled into the narrative, some unwillingly, some with voices shaking but determined to tell the truth. Justin Bieber's silence over the years on many issues has often been seen as strategic. But this time, insiders say it was different. This was personal. In his younger years, he was often surrounded by older men in power, shaping his image, managing his schedule, curating his brand. Diddy was among them. Bieber described moments that made him feel uncomfortable, though he never went as far as to claim abuse. Still, in the current context, every vague memory becomes a potential clue. Every resurfaced video a haunting piece of evidence. The internet, of course, has responded in kind. Dulled footage of Bieber and Diddy is being dissected frame by frame. A clip where Diddy refers to spending time with Justin has gone viral again, raising eyebrows in a world now hyper-aware of grooming and power dynamics in the industry. The weight of Bieber's words lies in his choice to speak at all. For a long time, he was viewed as someone who had distanced himself from his past. His new identity, grounded in faith, family, and healing, seemed far removed from the chaos of his youth. But this case, seemed to tug at something deeper in him, a need for honesty, a need to unburden. Bieber spoke about the responsibility he feels now as a man, especially as someone who survived the intense pressure cooker of fame from such a young age. "I want to be the voice I needed when I was 15, he said. That line alone sent chills through millions of fans, many of whom had watched Bieber grow up under the unblinking eye of fame. While Bieber did not claim to be a victim in the legal sense, his emotional truth painted a broader picture of a toxic culture, a culture where young stars are paraded around, exposed to adult situations, and robbed of their innocence in the name of success. His revelations add another layer to the growing narrative of exploitation in the music business, a narrative that's no longer hiding behind platinum records and Grammy awards. As more artists come forward, the industry's darkest corners are being illuminated. The public's reaction to Bieber's statement was swift and divided. Some praised his courage, calling him a hero for shedding light on an industry that often eats its young. Others questioned his timing, suggesting he could have spoken up sooner. Yet those close to Bieber defend his decision, reminding critics that trauma, confusion, and fear often delay the truth. It's not easy confronting powerful people. It's even harder when those people helped build your career. Diddy, for his part, has remained defiant. Through his legal team, he has denied any involvement in illegal activities and has vowed to fight the charges. Yet the court of public opinion is far less forgiving than the courtroom. Every new testimony, every leak, every statement from figures like Bieber chips away at the empire Diddy once commanded. A man once seen as untouchable is now being scrutinized under a microscope. Behind closed doors, record labels are holding emergency meetings. Artists are reconsidering their affiliations. Brands are quietly pulling back. The ripple effect of this trial and of Bieber's words is real and growing. For younger artists still trying to find their voice, Bieber's stand is being seen as a turning point. A signal that it's possible to speak out, even when the world is watching, even when the past is messy and the future uncertain. Friends of Bieber have commented that he's been deeply reflective in recent months, even more so than usual. His focus, they say, has been on accountability, not just for others, but for himself. He's been revisiting old memories, conversations, and decisions. Part of that reflection led him to speak up. The more he watched the news unfold about Diddy, the harder it became to stay silent. He reportedly reached out to some of the other young stars who, like him, had been close to Diddy in the past. A few of them are now considering coming forward with their own stories. The domino effect has only just begun. To the public, the trial is another Hollywood scandal, but to those inside the industry, it's a reckoning. Diddy's legacy, once untouchable, is now dripping with questions. And Justin Bieber, the boy who once danced on Diddy's stage, has become one of the voices guiding the industry through this turbulent chapter. His words are more than a statement. They're a crack in the wall of silence. And through that crack, a flood of long, buried truths may finally come pouring out. He paused, eyes distant, as if watching a memory play on loop. He spoke of nights spent in recording studios where deals were made as casually as handshakes, where promises hung heavy in smoke, filled rooms. He recalled conversations that started off promising mentorship, but often ended with feelings of being used. His talent leveraged to open doors, only to be shuffled aside once a new face arrived. Bieber's voice wavered as he described feeling like a commodity, his youth sold bit by bit in exchange for fame. It was a confession that resonated far beyond the courtroom and social feeds, a confession that peeled back the veneer of glamour to reveal the cost of relentless ambition. As the trial began, prosecutors laid out a tapestry of allegations, travel logs showing women flown around the world, bank statements linking unexplained payouts, phone records suggesting coercive recruitment, and witness testimonies detailing manipulation and abuse. Each exhibit was a thread in a narrative that tied power to predation. Diddy's lawyers countered with impassioned denials, arguing that business and personal relationships had become intertwined and that any transactions were above board and consensual. They painted the accusers as opportunists, motivated by money and fame. Amid this clash, Bieber's words echoed, his discomfort, his disillusionment, his longing for innocence lost. Social media ignited in response. Fans dissected every nuance of Bieber's statement, while critics accused him of grandstanding for clicks. But beneath the cacophony, a deeper conversation emerged about the responsibility of industry leaders to protect the vulnerable. Podcasts and late-night shows debated whether a single voice, even one as powerful as Bieber's, could truly shift entrenched systems. Some argued that his confession was too little, too late. Others saw it as a spark that could ignite real change. Meanwhile, in the jury deliberation room, 12 strangers held the fate of one of music's biggest icons. They weighed recordings of Bieber's interview as evidence of a culture of exploitation. Jurors asked for clarifications, subpoenaed additional documents, and retreated into guarded silence to debate the credibility of witnesses. They grappled with the complexities of consent, power imbalances, and the perils of celebrity. It was an unprecedented case, and every nuance mattered. Justin Bieber's testimony, publicly delivered yet personal, had become an unofficial exhibit, a turning point in a trial that might rewrite the rules for how the entertainment world addresses allegations of abuse. Backstage at his next concert, Bieber's team readied him for a performance that would inevitably be tinged with the trial's shadow. His setlist reflected a new maturity, songs about growth, redemption, and the search for authenticity. He opened with a slowed-down version of a childhood hit, stripped of auto-tune and pyrotechnics, a reminder that beneath the spectacle there was a real person. Midway through the show, he paused and addressed the crowd. He thanked them for their support during a time when speaking out felt like both liberation and burden. There were cheers, tears, and a sense that something profound was unfolding. For young fans who saw him as a hero, that moment crystallized a deeper respect, not just for his music but for his courage. The trial reached its climax when prosecutors called a key witness, a former assistant to Diddy who had moved through the corridors of power with name tags and pedigree. She described the inner workings of the operation, the fast cars, the chartered jets, the hush payments. She spoke of parties behind velvet ropes where boundaries blurred and no one asked for consent. Her testimony was delivered calmly but carried the weight of trauma long suppressed. The courtroom fell silent as Bieber's statement flashed on big screens, his description of feeling like a pawn in a game designed by older men. It was a moment that juxtaposed the innocence of youth with the calculating machinations of predatory behavior. In the jury room, voices weighed the testimony against Diddy's denials. Could they reconcile the glamour with the grim allegations? They questioned the credibility of each side, examined the evidence, and felt the gravity of their decision. For jurors, Bieber's public confession was more than words. It was a human element in a case that threatened to feel abstract. It reminded them that behind every headline and exhibit was a young artist whose life had been forever altered. Outside the courthouse, protesters held signs reading "Protect Our Youth" and "Justice for Survivors." Some chanted Bieber's name alongside the names of other artists who had suffered in silence. Media vans lined the street, broadcasting live updates. The trial had transcended being a scandal. It had become a cultural crossroads. Conversations about consent, power, and protection echoed in boardrooms, social media feeds, coffee shops, and family dinners. The entertainment industry watched as sponsors and brands began reevaluating partnerships, not only with Diddy, but with executives and artists whose practices were now under scrutiny. In the final days of deliberation, jurors asked for replays of Bieber's interview, transcripts of his statement, and reminders of context. They pored over nuances. Does his reluctance to name names affect his credibility? Does his lack of direct allegations diminish the impact? These were not easy questions, yet his honesty about feeling exposed like a lamb among wolves lingered. It cast a human light on the case, beyond the allure of celebrity, reminding jurors of the real stakes, accountability, protection, and the possibility of change. The verdict, when it came, was not a simple yes or no. The jury delivered a split decision, guilty on some counts, hung on others. It was a compromise that reflected the complexity of the case. There were cheers and tears as the courtroom erupted in emotion. The judge scheduled a retrial on the hung charges, extending the saga further. For Diddy, the verdict was a blow to his empire. For justice advocates, it was a step forward. And for Justin Bieber, it was validation that speaking out mattered, that a single voice could puncture the armor of silence. In the aftermath, the reverberations continued. Record labels announced new policies, mandatory consent workshops, third-party oversight of after-hours events, and clear channels for reporting misconduct. Managers began including safe space agreements in contracts. Artists formed coalitions to support each other. Justin Bieber attended meetings behind closed doors with executives and survivors, advocating for structural change. He took on the role of an unlikely champion, a pop star turned activist determined to ensure no young artist felt alone, confused, or exploited. Meanwhile, Diddy's team appealed the verdict, arguing procedural errors and judicial overreach. The legal battle dragged on, but the cultural battle had already shifted. The public demanded transparency, sponsors reconsidered deals, fans re-examined their loyalties, and the conversation about power, money, and music never returned to silence. Justin Bieber's career also evolved. His music reflected a new purpose. He released songs addressing trauma, healing, and empowerment. He collaborated with artists who championed survivor rights. At award shows, instead of performing spectacle-laden sets, he opted for stripped-down performances, acoustic, intimate, with proceeds donated to organizations combating trafficking and abuse. His actions inspired others. Female and male artists alike found the courage to speak up about their own experiences. A wave of testimony followed, each story echoing Bieber's call for honesty. Some came forward with allegations against other industry figures, sparking investigations. Some shared stories of minor infractions, boundary crossings that had been normalized. The industry faced an unprecedented reckoning, one that extended beyond hip-hop to pop, rock, electronic music, and beyond. In interviews, Bieber reflected on his journey. He spoke of guilt, survivor's guilt for not speaking sooner, and gratitude for having a platform. He acknowledged the privilege that allowed him to be heard when so many others remained voiceless. He emphasized that true change required more than slogans. It required systemic overhaul. He advocated for independent oversight boards, transparent reporting mechanisms, and a cultural shift that prioritized human dignity over profits. As the retrial approached, Diddy's once impenetrable persona had fractures. He agreed to mediation sessions with some accusers, though details remained confidential. He issued a statement expressing regret for any harm caused, while still denying intentional wrongdoing. Attorneys debated whether the mediation signaled a tactical move or genuine remorse. Either way, the world was watching. Justin Bieber, by then, had moved beyond being just a pop phenomenon. He was an agent of change. His fanbase, once fueled by teenage fandom, now included activists, policymakers, and survivors. His social media was filled not only with tour announcements, but with resources on consent education and mental health support. He partnered with NGO to create educational programs for young musicians, ensuring they had mentors who understood the pitfalls of fame and power dynamics. The industry, ever adaptive, began to see the value in transparency. Music festivals introduced strict safeguarding protocols, labels hired compliance officers, award shows included safe passage protocols for attendees. The conversation about consent extended to streaming platforms, which initiated zero-tolerance policies for artists found guilty of abuse. Through it all, Bieber's influence was undeniable. He had started as a boy with a guitar on YouTube and evolved into a man using his voice to reshape an entire industry. His decision to break silence on Sean Diddy Combs was more than a news moment. It was a catalyst. It demonstrated that spoken truth, even when imperfect, carries transformative power. In this ongoing saga, no one emerged unscathed. Careers pivoted, legacies were rewritten, standards were elevated. And at the heart of it was a young artist who chose honesty over comfort, empathy over silence, and action over apathy. His journey mirrored that of countless others who had been silenced by fear or complicit in systems that thrived on secrecy. The music industry, with all its glitter and glamour, had faced its reckoning, and while the road ahead remained fraught with appeals, retrials, and lingering debates, the direction was clear toward accountability, protection, and respect. Justin Bieber's voice had become a beacon, proving that a single confession can ignite a movement, that courage can take many forms, and that the pen, whether in the form of lyrics, interviews, or testimonies, can indeed be mightier than the sword. As the world continues to watch, one thing is certain. The echoes of this trial and of Bieber's brave choice to break his silence will resonate for years to come, shaping the way artists, executives, and fans think about power, responsibility, and the true meaning of success in an industry built on dreams.